Okay, guys, so I'm going to go over some things that you need to focus on when it comes to your exam on your first exam. Okay, first we're going to look at the levels of organization, which are in your textbook. So we know that biology is the study of living things. It's very diverse. However, there are certain things that share common features. You do need to focus on the 6 kingdoms. There are 6 kingdoms. There are also 3 domains. So the 6 kingdoms are bacteria, archaea. Bacteria and archaea consist of your prokaryotes. You have your animalia. We are included in the animalia. The plantae, which are your plants, your fungi, and your protista. These are on page 2 of your textbook. Now, the protista is the most complex. Bacteria and archaea are prokaryotes. The other 4 are eukaryotes. So, there are certain things or certain characteristics that they all have in common. You also have 3 domains. The 3 domains, now here are the 6 kingdoms right here that I just mentioned to you guys. You also have the 3 domains, your prokaryotes, well, your archaea, your bacteria, and your eukarya. There are only 3 domains, archaea, bacteria, and eukarya. And of course you have 6 kingdoms. So remember your 6 kingdoms. Another interesting thing I want to tell you about bacteria, the difference between bacteria and us, we all have, both bacteria and us, we have DNA, deoxyribose nucleic acid, that we inherit. However, the DNA in us is found in your nucleus. Now, prokaryotes, your bacteria, which are also called single-celled organisms, they do not have a nucleus, but they do have a nucleoid. So their bacteria is actually housed in the nucleoid. Okay, just wanted to get that squared away. Now, characteristics of all living things, they're very complex, especially us. We're very complex. We have multiple cells in the body that must be functioning appropriately in order for us to exist. We respond to a stimulus or a stimuli. Okay? Excuse me. You also have cellular organization, which is one of the characteristics of living organism. Energy utilization is a characteristic of living organism. Homeostasis. Guys, these are also called the fundamental properties of life. Homeostasis, growth, development, and reproduction. Heredity, which consists of our DNA that we inherit from our parents, is considered our hereditary material or our genetic material. So these are, be familiar with, know these are your characteristics of all living organisms or the hierarchical organization. Okay, well, characteristics of living organisms here. There's one thing that you can point out. We all utilize energy. We get our energy from the foods that we consume. However, there are non-living things that also utilize energy, such as your cell phone, such as your cars, such as your laptop, your iPad, things of that sort. They utilize energy. Now, here are the characteristics that's on your study guide. Cellular organization, energy utilization, homeostasis, which was on the previous slide that we've already talked about. Living cells, all cells are living, okay? And of course, they can be unicellular or multicellular. Bacteria are unicellular. We are multicellular. And of course, we have our cells carry out the basic activities of life for us. Energy utilization, I don't know if there's any questions on your exam about energy utilization, but you do need to know that we all, as stated before, we utilize energy. We get our energy from the plants, okay? Sunlight, plants produce their foods or their starches or carbohydrates by a process called photosynthesis, but they have to have solar energy in the form of sunlight. However, we extract the energy from the plants. That's how we get our energy. You know, we have gardens that we extract, that we get, grow our plants or vegetables in, and that's how we extract our energy. Or those organisms that feed on plants, we actually will extract our energy from them as well. Homeostasis. Maintenance of a stable internal condition, guys, is called homeostasis. Okay, it is called homeostasis. A really good example, which I also use in my Anatomy 201 course, is that I'm going to use a stable body temperature. We know body temperature as being 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. So regardless of the external environment. So the thing of how is this accomplished? So I take you guys outside this morning. It's maybe 30-40 degrees out there, and we have lab, okay? So your body temperature is going to start dropping below 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit because you're cold, okay? One thing that's going to bring the body temperature back up to 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, your blood vessels constrict, which means your blood is going to remain deep in your body. And of course, you want it to remain deep because it's going to warm you up. If that doesn't happen, what are you going to do? You're going to shiver. When you shiver, of course, you have little minute muscle contractions taking place in your body. That will also bring your body temperature back up to 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a really good example of homeostasis. Growth, development, and reproduction. Bacteria grow by a process called binary fission. We, complex multicellular organisms, we grow by increasing the number of cells, which we're going to talk about when we talk about mitosis, how we will increase in height due to cell division. Our hereditary information, which you guys know, is the molecular basis of our inheritance that we receive from our parents, and it's called DNA. Okay, so the DNA or our genes is transmitted from our parents to us, which we are considered the offspring. Here are your levels of organization. So we talked about some characteristics of life. Now we're going to look at the levels of organization. Just be familiar with the rank, the order of them. You go from the smallest to the largest. You have your atoms, you have your molecules, your organelles, and like I stated, in our organelle, the nucleus, our DNA or genetic or hereditary material is found in the nucleus. However, in bacteria, it is found in the nucleoid. So cells, the basic unit of life, all cells are living. This is a picture that you're going to see in your textbook of the cellular level. We're going to go from the smallest to the largest. So the smallest or the least complex will be your atoms. And of course, the largest, we will take it all the way up to the organismal level, which will consist of your tissues, your organs, and your organ system. Populational level. Population consists of a group of like species. Of course, you have a community which will consist of all populations of species, such as the human population in a community, in your community, the animals, the trees, things of that sort will make up a community. An ecosystem would be everything. You guys probably had to construct an ecosystem when you were in middle school or something. Ecosystem comprises everything. People, plants, animals, the water, rocks, any of the physical environment, things in the physical environment that we see, snow, things of that sort will make up your ecosystem. And bringing that all together, it makes up a whole, which is your biosphere, which is the highest on the levels of organization. Now, let's look at deductive and inductive reasoning is not on your test. You do need to understand what a hypothesis is. Okay, I'm going to stop right here, but I'm going to pick up, look at this example right here. Remember, guys, you always have to start with an observation. Then you formulate a question, and your hypothesis will actually follow, okay? For example, you made an observation that your flashlight doesn't work, or even your car doesn't start, okay? So you're going to ask the question, what's wrong with my flashlight, or what's wrong with my car? The flashlight, the batteries may be dead. Some of the wires may not be constructed properly in the flashlight, which is why it's not working. And you can say the same thing in your car. My car is out of gas. That's a hypothesis. Or perhaps it is actually dead, okay? And then you're going to follow it up with the prediction. It says, okay, if I replace the battery in my car, then my car will start. Or if I have someone to bring me gas, to put gas in my car, then my car would start. And you always have to follow, guys, with an experiment. When you have an experiment, you're going to have a control group, okay, and you're going to have an experimental group. The control group is a group that's not, the variable is unaltered, which means you're not going to do anything to it. It's considered a placebo. And you're going to also have your experimental group. So if I look at this example right here, it says review examples in your textbook. A hypothesis is an educated guess or a possible explanation for an observation. Hypotheses can be false, okay, or falsified, which means they're not always correct. Okay, you did that with lab last week with body temperature and how different parts of your body, your forearm, the back of your neck, and your forehead, the body temperature, the temperature for each part was not 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, but of course it was the parts where the body temperature was different, which meant that, you know, I think your hypothesis would have been correct here. However, if the hypothesis isn't correct, you're going to have to reject it, and you're going to have to go back to the drawing board and, of course, start another experiment. So here are what you're going to have in your experimental group. You got to have an experiment. This is where you're going to have the variable that's going to be manipulated or altered. You're going to have your control group where the variable is unaltered. This is just a really good example of something that's unaltered. That means you're not going to do anything to it. Okay, so for example, in your experimental group, you can say, think of my brain is on like shutdown mode right now, but think of an experiment where you would change or manipulate the variable, and think of one where you're not going to have the variable is not going to be altered. So here's a really good example I gave you guys the other day in class with the Olestra potato chips, or the fat-free potato chips. The experimental group, they received the Olestra potato chips. The control group received just regular potato chips. Okay, that variable was not changed, modified, or altered, but the one in the experimental group was what? It was altered. It was changed because they received the ones that the potato chips that had the Olestra chips, or had the olein oil in them. All right. So here we have your DNA, which is your molecular basis of inheritance. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as we proceed through Biology 103. Okay. Now, I think this is all I have to cover for this particular chapter, and the next one will be on chapter 2. So this is about 15 minutes long. I'm going to end the recording.